And welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. Now, there's a couple dates in history that ring a lot of bells for a lot of people. July 4th, 1776, the sign of the Declaration of Independence. December 7th, 1941, a day that will live in infamy. July 16th, 1969. Nice, 69. First man, Neil Armstrong, walks on the moon. And then there's now one more date we could add to the history books. And that date is May 2nd, 2023. And what happened on May 2nd, 2023? The man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Rattle Pokemon, was able to pull the Moonbryon on a live stream in front of close to 900 people. And I was gracious enough and lucky enough to be one of those 900 people watching that stream live. And I will tell you right now, I have never been so happy for somebody to pull a card as I was watching Rattle Pokemon pull that Moonbryon. It was a long time coming. I mean, you're talking close to 30, I think he said 3,711 packs. 3,600 packs represents 100 booster boxes. My man Rattle was about 103 booster box deep. Obviously, all those packs didn't come from booster boxes, but the equivalent. My God, I was so happy. And I will tell you right now, if you haven't had a chance to watch that stream, or at least go back and watch the moment he pulled that Moonbryon, I definitely recommend you guys going back and watching that. But more importantly than just going back and watching Rattle pull that Moonbryon real time on that live stream, have your chat open and watch what the live chat does. I've been in a lot of Pokemon chats in my entire life, and I have never one time seen a chat fire off the way that Rattle's chat fired off. And it was awesome. So, May 2nd, 2023, that is a day that will live in this hobby for a while. And yeah, good for you, Rattle, man. If you're out there watching this video, either real time or after the fact, bud, dude, we are so happy for you for pulling that Moonbryon. And thank you very much for letting me join you on as many streams as you have and letting me, watch you try to pull that card. And I think the fact of the matter is that when Rattle would have guests on, and I'm definitely part of this company now, anytime Rattle would have guests on, he would just have super bad luck. And the two streams that he didn't have guests on, so last stream, he did Fusion Strike, and he pulled a bunch of monster hits. Like, a bunch of full arts, a bunch of alt arts, including the Celebi alt art, including the Gengar alt art. And then, for this last stream for Evolving Skies, removing the Moonbryon from that equation, that was one of the best pack opens I've ever seen. He pulled the Leafeon VMAX, he pulled the Glaceon VMAX, and he pulled that Umbreon VMAX. It was awesome. So, yeah. May 2nd, 2023, a day that will live in the history of this hobby. And I will, right before I get into the topic of this video, is when it's okay to sell your Pokemon cards. I will say that there's one thing that I love. All the people's hot takes that say you have to spend all this money to open up that Moonbryon. And I love how they don't count any of the other cards he opened at all, and they just value them all as 0. But, listen, I never recommend you guys doing that. That was an absolutely crazy thing. But that arc, it was an awesome arc. And in this hobby, and especially when I talk about this hobby, I'm talking about like this more closed niche, like YouTube community. I mean, the amount of people watching these lives are a lot of crossover viewers, stuff like this. But it was a good arc that went on for months now. And yeah. Is it bittersweet that it's over? Of course it is. But at the same time, am I super happy that Rattle doesn't have to open up any more packs of Evolving Skies? Yes. It's the same way it was bittersweet when Cool Trainer Ryan finally pulled that Celebi alt art. You wanted to see it happen, but when it finally does happen, you get a little sad inside. But yeah, if you haven't got a chance to go back and watch that video, go back and watch it. But more importantly, watch the chat. I mean, I've seen crazy PokeRev chats with 5,000 to 6,000 people in and watch the chat go crazy. But it had nothing on what Rattle's chat did. But anyways, now let's get back. Now that we got that out of the way, and it took me close to 5 minutes to talk about Rattle pulling that Moonbryon, let's talk about the actual topic of this video, and it's when is it okay to sell your Pokemon cards? Because that's one of the things I see all the time. I'll constantly go on different videos and look at what the comments are saying. And one of the things people are asking is, when is it okay to sell? When should I sell? When should I do this? And my answer to that is, you should always be selling, just like you should always be buying. I feel like it's a pretty simple answer. You should always be selling. You should always be buying. And if you guys aren't selling right now, one of the things I recommend, and it's one of the things that I keep recommending, is get used to it. Most people out there are very good buyers. I've found that people are able to now source product for super cheap, are able to find poorly titled eBay auctions, are able to find poorly, optimized eBay listings, whether it's auctions or, the times are poorly ending, stuff like this. People are very good at optimizing stuff, but I have found out that people are very bad at selling stuff. Use all the knowledge that you have buying stuff, optimizing listings and stuff like this, and find out what works best for you. When is it okay to sell your Pokemon cards? Today, yesterday, tomorrow. It's the same way as when was a good time to buy Pokemon cards. Today, yesterday, and tomorrow. It's all the same. There is no difference. But I do recommend you guys, if you do get into the ebbs and flows of selling your cards, make sure you have at least the absolute basics covered. One, if you are selling on eBay, please, 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 please do not be going to the post office with your envelopes and having the post office ship your envelopes. I can't even imagine. You would be actually shocked at how many eBay items I buy and the envelopes come to me in the mail, and you can tell that that person went to the post office and, had the cashier behind the counter, ring out that package. Don't ever do that. On eBay, you're going to get, crazy savings by going through eBay. And that might sound absolutely no-brainer to a lot of people, but I am shocked at how many people aren't doing that. And just, start doing all the simple stuff, too. Start buying all your bubble mailers in bulk. Whether you're going to cut cardboard or not, or you're going to do, 0 bubble mailers, find out what works best for you. Find out, how you can keep that first class package under 4 ounces, especially if you're going the way of graded cards. Anything up to 4 ounces is going to be the same price. So that gives you a lot of leeway, especially with graded cards. Do these very simple things. But to dive into this topic a little bit more than just the obvious stuff of just shipping packages and not every time's a good time to sell. It's okay. How do you make that decision for yourself? Whether it's graded cards, sealed product, how do you now look at the market and say, okay, I think this thing is overvalued. I think this thing is undervalued. I think this thing is going to be stagnant. Because I think that is probably the more important conversation, right? And when it comes to graded cards, you have to look at the market. You have to see where the demand is. I'm going to tell you right now, during the boom, there was a ton of stuff that was absolutely disgustingly overvalued. And sure, we do it all the time, and there's other channels. Dan Catchmall Collectibles talks about it all the time. I've talked about it on this channel. There are the glaringly obvious examples of cards that were super overvalued, and you look at your Pikachu first editions or Eevee first editions from Jungles, cards like that, grossly overvalued. There were some cards that even during the hype, the boom, actually didn't reach their all-time highs. We're seeing some of the all-time highs for some cards reaching them today. So how do you navigate that? Well, it's not like a easy black and white answer. It's not a simple clear cut answer. You're just going to have to understand what do you, and this is what it boils down to. This is where you're going to have to get to the point in the hobby where you got to just go with your gut. What do you think is overvalued? What do you think is undervalued? Taking into knowledge everything you have gained, everything you understand now about this hobby. Are PSA 7 first edition commons, uncommons, are they undervalued? No. They're probably overvalued. I don't even know what price stuff like that's selling at, but they're probably overvalued. Start to look at cards. Start to look at what's being graded. Start to look at pop reports. Start to look at what do you think is going to be graded in the future? And then start to look at demand. And the same thing could go for vintage as it can for modern. This is not a pro-vintage conversation. This can also be a pro-modern conversation. You can have a card with crazy pop reports, but if you believe, and you truly believe in your heart of hearts, if you look at a card like a Moonbreon, which is still just scratching the surface of what that pop report is going to be, that pop report is going to be exponentially higher than it is today. If you truly believe in that card, if you truly believe that card is rare, if you truly believe that people will want that card in the future, that's when you got to go with your gut. And just don't always listen to me. Don't always listen to other people. I'm not a buyer of that card. I'm not. I've said it on a million different videos. But if you think that's a good buy, I'm not going to ever be the one to like stand in front of you for something like that. But then on the other end of the spectrum, if you are looking at some super mass-produced, easy to grade yourself, ton of like raw copies available on the market, and you want to start picking up like PSA 10s of celebrations, but you're not willing to pick up like just tons of those cards raw and grade them yourself, that's when I'm going to kind of step in and say, listen, you probably shouldn't be doing this. You should probably be doing the graded route yourself if this is a card you truly want in your collection. Now, do I think cards like that are going to inherently do well in the future? Don't know, don't care. I'd be selling those cards. So to go to the title of this video, when is it okay to sell those cards? It's cards that I think I could easily replace. If you think you can replace that card, if that card is not inherently rare, it's not inherently scarce, I tell you to sell it. The same way as we talk about the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies, if you look at the Moonbreon from Neo Discovery, the original Moonbreon, whether that is in a PSA 9 selling between 1,000 or 1,500, or if you want to go the big ball route and go the PSA 10 route, maybe that's a good buy. I don't know. You know, when you start to look at a Neo Discovery Umbreon and you look at what those cards are selling at raw, versus if you could grade those cards in a 9 yourself, grade those cards in a 10, it's possible. You know, you should really consider doing that if you can source them raw. But, you know, this is where it gets tough. But like a card like that, even that card, as rare as it is, as hard it is to grade, as hard it is to source, that might be a card that's worth it to sell for you too, if you feel you can use that money in other places. And I guess we should probably always say this at the beginning. This should go like at the beginning of every video. If you are ever questioning when to sell your Pokemon cards, and there's one thing above all other that you are carrying, and that is just credit card debt or some crazy kind of debt, and you are super over leveraged in this hobby and you can't do something as simple as pay off your credit card and, you know, like the very, very simple things, then yes, I'm going to tell you right now that the easy answer is to sell your cards. And I'm going to make that very clear to everybody. But assuming now that you're not having your entire collection leveraged on debt and you're able to like easily buy stuff, you know, when is it okay to sell? It's always okay to sell. But, you know, and then when it comes to sealed product and stuff like this, some people are going to run into the issue that I run into all the time. And that big issue I run into all the time is I have no choice. And I know I say this in a lot of videos, and it is kind of a broken record at this point, but I feel I need to hammer down this point to a lot of people, is I have no choice, but I need to sell products and sell things at certain points along my collecting journey in order to free up cash. Because if I do not free up that cash, I will have no cash available to buy stuff that I actually do want as part of my collection. And then going back to when is it okay to sell Pokemon cards? It's okay to sell Pokemon cards if you feel that your collection has lost that set identity. And I talk about this all the time. And this is one of those very, very common things I hear from a ton of people. A lot of people out there tell me all the time that they feel their collection has no identity, that they're just too spread out and they don't actually love or actually care about what's in there. For a channel like this, you know, we talk about investing, but we talk about collecting too. But at the end of the day, I do believe you need to love whatever is in your collection. Or at least you need to have some sort of passion to it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure in some parallel universe, maybe there's a way you can just collect Pokemon and not care about it at all. But I do not believe that. I believe you need to care about it. You need to appreciate what you have. And if you feel you're not appreciating the stuff you have, or if you feel that the stuff that you do own is carrying some excess burden or excess weight on you, Or if you're looking at the things you own and you're constantly, day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, all you could ever think about is, God, I hope that this doesn't crash in price. If you start to feel that way, if you start to get overly nervous at the things that you're supposed to care about investment, if you're just constantly worried about that thing dropping in value, that thing constantly, like, in a way becoming a bag, then it's probably time for you to sell that item. Get out of the items that you feel are going to be the high risk stuff. And when is it okay to sell Pokemon cards too? It's also okay to sell Pokemon cards when you feel the market is hottest for some cards. There are bubbles that form, and it's, when you throw around the word bubble in Pokemon, everybody, freaks out. PK's calling it a bubble again. Listen, there are areas of this hobby, there's areas of Pokemon that are definitely go in and out of bubbles. It's very clear. I just gave you an example earlier in this video. That first edition Pikachu from Jungle, that first edition Eevee from Jungle, while both those cards were definitely in a bubble, 100%. You can look at charts, you can look at graph, you can listen to the way people were talking about that. You can listen. There were actually literally channels that were born out of talking about those cards. Channels that literally went from not existent to existent only to talk about those cards, to talk about how ridiculous those prices were. That was a area within the hobby that was definitely a bubble, and anybody who was in the know would have been able to tell you that, but anybody who wasn't in the know wouldn't be able to tell you that. So there's definitely areas of this hobby that go in and out of bubbles, and sometimes those bubbles pop. And even within the height of heights and the booms of booms and the craziness that was 2020 and the craziness that was 2021, there was a lot of cards that actually floated under the radar. And it took all the way to today for some of those cards to start really going up in price. So the question is, well, even in the booms of booms and the craziness that was Pokemon, there was a bunch of cards that if you sold them in 2020, 2021, you actually sold them at a bad time. And that if you held onto a lot of those cards till 2023, you actually would have been better off. And that is the most counterintuitive thing that you can say, right? Because everybody's like, wait. Everything went up in 2020. Everything went up in 2021. How can you in the same sentence say that some stuff is just... I sneezed. Is Professor Oak in the chat? Shout out to Professor Oak. Oh my God. But, people will hear that and say, how can you say that in the same sentence? Some of this stuff is still undervalued and hadn't reached its highs till 2023. A lot of that is just knowing the markets, knowing what is overvalued at a time, knowing what isn't overvalued, what is undervalued. And there's only one way you're ever going to be able to navigate that. You got to start studying. You have to start understanding sets, understanding releases. I'm amazed at how many people are just still, don't get me wrong. I have a relatively good memory for a lot of this stuff. There are still times I have to go back and pull up set lists and do very simple things just to remember, like, what should be relatively easy information. It's almost impossible to learn everything. Well, no, it's not almost impossible. It is, in fact, impossible to learn everything about this hobby, and I talked about that before. And I promise you, if the day ever comes that I do feel that I know everything about this hobby, will probably be the last day that I'm in this hobby. But that I'm never worried about, because I don't know everything. Anybody who does tell you they know everything is absolutely full of shit, and those are the people you should never listen to a word they say if they tell you they know everything. I do not know everything. In fact, everybody that I surround myself with, everyone that I know, everybody that I trust in this hobby, they all say the same thing. None of those people, no one that I trust will tell you they know everything, because it's impossible to know everything. But you can still become an expert in certain things or little subsets of the hobby. But going back to what I was saying, you got to start learning about this stuff. Start learning about the sets. Start having your knowledge in this hobby. Stop just being, like, very thin. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people right now are spending so much time in this hobby. The people that really are spending a lot of time are doing really well. And I'm watching it happen. I'm talking to these people, whether it's through, Instagram messages or private Discord chats or public Discord chats. Listen, you guys want public Discord chats, public forums, Rattle Pokemon in his Discord, happy hour chats. There's a lot of people have very, like, open-ended conversations, talk about the plays that they're doing. And listen, This market goes deep. And as deep as this market goes, there is so many different plays that you can do along the ways. So many cards you can be buying, selling. You can be doing a lot of stuff. Now, one of the reasons too is when I say, when is it okay to sell your Pokemon card collections, or not collection, or just Pokemon? I shouldn't use the word collection. Just when is it okay to sell your Pokemon cards? It's okay to sell your cards too when you just want to enjoy what you have and use those cards to just expand stuff for you. Expanding is just as important, man. So, I think sometimes people lose sight of, what their goals in this hobby are. And I see it happen a lot. And I talk to people. And that's one of the first things I always ask them. I always say, like, what are your goals? What do you want from this hobby? What do you want to take out of this hobby? How do you become better? How do you want to become better? And I love to just hear what people say. And the scariest answer I've ever got, or the answer that always makes me the most nervous, is when people say, I don't know. It's like, how do you not know yet? You should at least know. Even if what you think you know is wrong at the end of the day, even if it's wrong, or you decide to change that answer in the future, at least have an answer to that question. So for when somebody walks up to you or somebody asks you, what are your goals in this hobby? At least there's something you can say. You could have some sort of concrete answer for that. To say you don't know, but yet you're willing to spend all this money and, more importantly, spend time in this hobby. And time is that thing I talk about all the time. And I told you in my last video, I love to talk about time because your time is your most valuable resource. Like, what you do with your time is vitally and crucially important in this hobby. So for some people to say, I don't know what my goal is, or I just want some stuff, but they have collection goals, and then they kind of just, they go real hard on those collection goals for whether a month or 2 or 3 months, and then a couple months go by and they kind of just lose track of what that goal was, and they move on to something else, and then they finish that little goal, or they get halfway through, and they got all these goals that they started, and they're all partially completed. Nothing is finished. There's no completion to any of this stuff, and they kind of just look at everything they have, and everything is just a started project, and none of those projects finished. Just find a goal. Find a goal and stick with it. And you can still do other stuff while you're doing goals, but don't just stop doing those goals. Don't lose sight of what your reasons for, like, continuing this hobby, your goals for this hobby. Make sure you just keep moving along. And more importantly than that, when is it okay to sell your Pokemon cards? I'm going to tell you right now. If you guys are not grading yet, and I know I've asked a lot of people and I've pleaded with people, if you've never graded a card in your entire life, please grade your first card. Go on the PSA, get yourself a membership, send your first submission. I don't care if you do it tonight. I don't care if you do it tomorrow, but please do it. Get familiar with grading scales. Get familiar with, the graded process, the submission process. Just do it once. I'm talking to you. You, the person that has never done it before. You need to do it at least once. And if you're asking these questions, if you're asking how can you optimize your collection, how can you start selling cards, and if you do not know the answer to that, and you have never graded a card, that is an easy answer for you. Grade your first card. Do it. Do it for the first time. So, all right. Anyways, that was my rant. Doing my best to keep these lives short. I said that last live. I said I want to keep it under 30 minutes. I went for like 55. So I'm going to do it my best this one. I'm going to hop to the beginning of the chat. I see we got Jumble Fits in there. I see we got Muffin Swagger, Electrobuzz, Master Trainer Ryan. Good to see you guys. Rock Sandy. Matt Popovich. He says, thanks for saving his boring day. Yeah, sometimes Wednesdays could be pretty boring. But Tuesday night was not boring when we got to see Mr. Rattle Pokemon pull that Moonbreon. A lot of people talking about the Moonbreon. People saying congrats to Rattle. Let's see, we got Brown CLM. We got number one mod in the game, Drew, in the chat. Let's see. Trapper said, did Rattle pull the Rayquaza at any point? He has still not pulled the Rayquaza out of all those packs, which it just shows you how impossible some of those pull rates were for Evolving Skies. And Yeah, it's just crazy because he didn't pull the Moonbrown and the Rayquaza. And when you look at the two most expensive cards in the set, those are two that he hasn't pulled yet. So yeah. Uh, Brown CLM says it was awesome to watch that live. Hours of watching Rattle rip Evolving Skies. That was quite a moment. It was. Hernan Jose Santos, what's up, bud? Jumbo Fitz says, PK, how much did you cringe inside for every pack open after the Moonbrown? Yeah, I was hoping Rattle, after he opened that Moonbrown, he was just kind of like place it down and say, okay, that's it. I'm never going to open another pack of Evolving Skies for the rest of my days. I think that would have been the way to kind of go, kind of walk away on top because really, for him to pull that card for anybody, that is the top of the mountain when it comes to Evolving Skies. And for that to be the last pack, I mean, that's really just, that would have been a nice moment. But he didn't. And by not doing that, he went into a couple extra packs and ended up pulling that Glaceon VMAX alternative art. So it wasn't a total lose for him. But yeah, it would have been pretty sweet to have seen him just walk away with that last pack. But yeah, oh well. Uh, Basic Trainer said, time to sell, boys. I know Basic Trainer's really been applying for his flipper license. So for all the flippers in the chat right now, put your dolphin emojis out there so I know you're there. Uh, let's see. Colemaine Land says, just cleaned out an LGS that bought up someone's insane collection. Big W for him. Got a lot of good cards in mint for cheap. Yeah, Coleman, I'd be interested in like what were those cards? Were they vintage, mid-era, modern? I'm just curious what those cards were. It is crazy to watch how people liquidate cards too, and like super cringy too. You know, you look at a big binder collection, and I get it. There's a lot of people like don't want to go through that process, don't want to like grade cards themselves. But why? I don't understand this because to acquire some of these collections could be massive, could be, collected throughout entire eras of Pokemon. So eras can be multiple sets, whether it's, original WotC stuff or early Nintendo or your Diamond and Pearls or Platinums or, just Heart Gold Soul Silvers, like all these different eras of cards, and people just collected throughout all of them and opened up hundreds to potentially thousands of packs. Some of these people, and then they just decide to liquidate that all in one big sale because it's easier. Of course, it's easier, but why leave so much meat on the bone for somebody else to scoop in and do all those graded plays for it? I never understood it and especially some of these really large collections. And I don't know exactly the collection that he's talking about or what was in it. But if that collection's large enough, there's usually like a handful of cards, whether that's, between 5 to a dozen cards, could usually, just those 5 to dozen cards, if you grade them, hit high grades, it can more or less either one, pay for the entire collection, or at least number two, free up a ton of available capital. So why people don't just optimize those very small 5 or 12 cards to optimize that money, I'll never understand that. I never understand why people leave so much meat on the bone. And especially have these services like Z&G Emporium is doing that consignment plus. And what is that consignment plus? It's just you have a bunch of raw cards. You send it to James from Z&G. He takes those cards, submits them to PSA for you. He pays all the grading fees up front, and you don't have to pay those grading fees until those cards sell. But as soon as he gets the cards back, he lists them on eBay for you. They sell at auction, and then he pulls out from the final value fee like all his fees and the cost of grading. So whatever's left over after all that, you get for yourself. You don't even do any work. When you have people out there like that exist, I don't understand why would you just sell a huge collection? I never understood that. And maybe because it's so foreign to me, but for some people it probably does make sense. But I would always just tell the person like, hey, these 5 best cards of yours, why don't you just grade these? And whatever money you're tied up for, you're in a need for money, because a lot of this I do believe is just people who need money in like a very short amount of time. If that's the case, I just feel bad for that person that they need to liquidate this collection in order to free up like cash at a super undervalued market. It's almost the same way as like if somebody were to walk into a pawn shop or something and pawn their item to a pawn shop, and you know that they're going to get like pennies on the dollar for whatever their item is. It's always like this real cringy type thing. And I feel bad for those people if that's the case. Scooter says, think he'll keep going with the Ray. He said he wouldn't, but you never know. So I will tell you right now, I do know Rattle very well. I consider Rattle one of my best friends in this hobby, and I'll tell you right now that Rattle will never be doing Evolving Skies opening from now until the end of days. So, Scooter, sorry, that Ray hunt will never happen. The Pokemon Dentist says, people spend their entire lives never getting such a moment. It doesn't matter if it costs $50K that moment. He will remember forever, including himself. Yeah, so he's talking about Rattle pulling that Moonbrown. Yeah, it will be a memory that's, in a way, burned or engraved into a lot of people's minds. And when you think about this hobby and you think about, like, all the craziness that has gone on, I mean, for me, I have a couple moments that stick out more than anything else. One of those moments for me, at least when it comes to watching other people pull cards. So when I was at the Leonhardt pop-up shop, I was very lucky. I pulled a base set Mewtwo on stage in front of thousands of people. That base set Mewtwo I pulled, I graded with PSA. It hit a 10. It's in fact the only base set holo I've ever personally graded a 10. So that was actually a huge thing. But more importantly than that, I got to watch Mr. Basic Trainer himself stand up on that stage and pull a Charizard in front of all those, thousands of people watching at home and the hundreds of people that were there at the event. And I'll tell you what, the same way that I felt with Basic Trainer pulling that Charizard was the same way that I felt with Rattle pulling that Moonbrown. You could just get very happy for your friends when you see your friends do something that is just awesome. And that's all that is. So, Muffin Swagger says, I much prefer selling/trading at in-person card shows, but I really should start on eBay. So, Muffin, if you haven't even sold anything on eBay, I recommend you get an eBay. Recommend you get in multiple eBays too. Don't just do the one. Get multiple eBays. Maybe you want to start with one, but I definitely recommend multiple. Cameron said, hey PK, extremely long time lurker, first time commenter, do the never catching your lives, Australian. Okay. Your content on long drives is chef's kiss. Keep up the great work. Appreciate you, Cameron. I appreciate the kind words, too. I definitely have some of the more longer form content in all of YouTube, at least when it comes to the Pokemon space. So, yeah, if you do like this, it is like the podcast thought style type commentary, I guess. So if you do enjoy it, yeah, I think it would be fun to listen to. Especially, obviously I don't really listen to my own content, but I do love content like this because I've talked about this on other lives and other conversations that at my job, I don't really have the ability to watch anything, but I definitely have the ability to listen to stuff. The same way as a lot of people listen to whether Pandora or Spotify, stuff like this, and they listen to music. I do the same thing, but I'm able to listen to Pokemon content. So that's one of my favorite things to do. That's why I love content like this, and that's why I ended up making the content that I like. And I think that kind of makes sense, right? Like, you're probably going to make the content that you enjoy most. And this is the type of content I enjoy most. And it's not for everybody. Trust me, I understand that. If you want to be super successful on YouTube, the hour-long rants are not the way to go. The way to go to be really successful is the pack opening route or the, well-edited videos. And I'll do that once in a while, but I'm just not about that life. I'm about to just turn it on the camera, hitting that go live, and just whatever happens, happens, And sometimes it could be tough, and sometimes I definitely could say things that I wish I could take back, or I'll say things. There was one video I was talking about Scarlet and Violet base, and for the first 20 minutes of video I kept saying Sword and Shield base. I definitely made mistakes like that, where if it wasn't a live video, if it was a pre-recorded video, I could have just easily edited that out and said, well, I wasn't talking about Sword and Shield, I was talking about Scarlet and Violet. So mistakes like that even happen. Let's see. Yeah, so Coda's talking about shipping packages. He says if you're outside of eBay, you could do pirate ship, so you're going to get pretty much very similar to the same prices you're going to get as if you were to sell packages on eBay. So that's a good point. Let's see. M. Reading 810 says, just shipped today, $59.99 from Amazon. No more $6 bubble mailers trying to get that 60-cent shipping. So I'm guessing what he said is he bought a bunch of like bulk bubble mailers too. And things too, if you guys are sending a ton of cards to PSA, I know a lot of people like buy their card saver ones and stuff on eBay, or their like graded card sleeves. Don't go to eBay to buy the stuff. Just go to cardboardgold.com and just buy them right from the website there. You're going to get your lowest price. And there's a lot of people I personally know who buy their card saver ones and buy their penny sleeves, or not penny sleeves, PSA graded card sleeves straight from Cardboard Gold, and then they sell those on eBay at smaller lots. So they'll buy like a couple thousand off Cardboard Gold and then sell their card saver ones in lots of 50 and just make very small margins, but they're doing it, and they've been doing it now for literally years. So if you are doing these big returns, like just when you buy 2,000 card saver ones, like it's worth it to do it one time, and especially if you're only doing like 100 card submissions. 2,000 card saver ones is going to last you a relatively long time, opposed to buying either 50 to 200 at a time. Oh, there he is, guys. The man of the hour. Everybody gets 1 hour. Mr. Rattle Pokemon, this is your hour, man. He says, hey, PK and gang. Congrats again, Rattle, on your most epic of polls. Chill Phil said, popularity is greater than scarcity. Sometimes, but not all the time. Mick Nick said, Rattle join in the chat with a Moonbreon in possession. Yeah, we got a lot of moon viewing ceremonies in the chat right now. Chill Phil's waiting for Rattle to put that Moonbreon in a binder, baby. Yeah. Felipe de Sosa said, the thought of selling my little cardboard babies makes me sad. Who will make sure they are safe at night? So, believe it or not, Felipe de Sosa has one of the funniest comments I have ever read. And to quote Felipe de Sosa, he said, given enough time, do all Pokemon cards turn to dust? And then if I smoke that dust, do I become dusted? When I read Felipe de Sosa comment that, I literally laughed out loud. That is one of my favorite like comments I have ever read in a live chat. So once again, Felipe de Sosa said, given enough time, do all Pokemon cards turn to dust? And if you smoke that dust, do you become dusted? I laughed so hard when I read that. Chill Phil's talking the Rattle said, congrats, bro. That was worse than torture. I think there was a little bit of Rattle. You can see it in his face. Every pack he got, he was open until he got to the end. Because that really, in reality, he opened 300 packs that stream. But he opened that Moonbreon with about 70 packs left in the stream. So he was already greater than 2/3 of the way through. And you can see it in his face. He was starting to get a little nervous. And you can tell he started talking about it more and more throughout that stream. And I think the words he kept using was, I don't want to source any more of these packs. I really hope we pull it. Because you could tell that was kind of his last-ditch hurrah is maybe not a good way to phrase it. But you can tell he was definitely getting ready for that to finally be open. But I think Rattle during the opening really showed his character. And the reason why I said it showed his character, at least the person he is because if you listen very carefully, when Rattle pulls that card, you can see it in his face how happy he was. But the sentence he said and the words he used really shows his character. He said, we did it, guys. We pulled it. And I thought that said a ton about him as a person. The fact that, in one of his happier moments, at least, opening packs, because let's be honest, it was a happy moment for him. But the fact that during his happiest moment, he used the words we, because he did honestly, and you can see it in his face, he did honestly believe it was like a community effort in a way to pull that card. And the fact that he said, we pulled it, we did it. Bravo, bravo, Rattle. That was, whether you meant to use those choice of words or not, man, it was, you did a good job. That was a huge grand slam you hit, because I think there was definitely a lot of people that were emotionally invested in you pulling that card. So for you to use the words we pulled it, we did it, that was pretty awesome, man. And I think that shows a lot about you. And I think I think a lot of people say that, some people care about this hobby and some people care about the people in this hobby. But for somebody to say those words in their like biggest moment was pretty awesome. I give you a lot of credit for that. Basic Trainer said the Rattle. I can't wait for you to start the Japanese Moonbryon chase. Yeah. Let's see. Pokey John said, bought Mooncat when Lambo. Love it. Shale says he caresses his collection at night. I'm sure that's not the only thing you caress at night. And then he immediately writes a hot dog below that. This is how you get canceled. Sir Master says, my wife keeps bugging me about making room. Says all my sealed stuff is taking up too much space. Now I'm moving. That's funny, bud. Pokey John says, ETB sleeves to the moon, invest quality plastic. I'll tell you what though, if you make a joke though, and I think it's funny that you made the joke talking about ETB sleeves as potentially being investments. I'll tell you right now, if PSA ever starts to grade ETB sleeves, I'm nervous to see what those prices sell at. And you guys might laugh, but I promise you, if PSA starts to grade ETB sleeves, like we live in a very weird market. We live in a very weird hobby where cards like old maid cards are worth money, where Uno cards are worth money, and I know you're not going to believe this, but when code cards are worth money, yes. If you want to look at how much code card sells for graded by PSA, it will make you actually vomit because you'll think it's the most ridiculous thing. And the people that did it, obviously, that is not a very deep market, like the graded code card market. But to be honest with you, like, it exists. And I'll tell you what, if the ETB graded market ever exists, there will be a buyer out there for those. I don't know who that buyer is, but they always exist. I'm always amazed at, as long as something is in between plastic, it sells. It's the same way as I made the joke as recently as the last live, that if PSA ever starts to grade the gold cards from Burger King from 1999, the cards just like that will go crazy. We live in a very weird world. The same way as you can grade some modern packs, as long as those graded modern packs hit a 10, you can sell those for ridiculous multipliers for how much that pack is actually worth. If you don't believe me, you go on eBay and just type in Pokemon foil packs and look at recent sold auctions. Sometimes you break even at 8s. You make a little bit of money sometimes at 9s, but you make crazy money at 10s. We live in a weird world. Mick Nick says, Unbroken Bonds got some heat somehow, a few $100 difference from the other tag team sets. Which, that is weird, right? Because Unbroken Bonds, you would say, like, why is it performing poorly? And when you start to look at the cards under it, you go, well, it still has a Charizard chase in it, So it is weird. Unbroken Bonds does fall within that weird. I mean, it's still expensive, right? I mean, all these team-up sets are expensive, but when you look at those last four and you look at the team-up Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, Cosmic Eclipse, you see what obviously team-up's doing. Cosmic Eclipse kind of doing its own thing, running away. Unified Minds with the Mewtwo and the Mew, it's like, okay, yeah, those are two fan-favorite Pokemons, but Unbroken Bonds, still having the Charizard, yeah, it is a little bit of a head-scratcher in a way, if you kind of look at it like that. So I could definitely see where you're coming from. Let's see. Hernan Jose Santos says, advice from PK is to get more knowledge. Yeah, pretty much. Let's see. Oh, God. Oh, I skipped to the bottom. Sometimes, I don't even know how to explain it to you guys. How sometimes when you're looking at the chat, it just hops to the bottom, but it does, and I don't know why. It's not like I'm doing anything different. Jumbo Fitz says he has Beams Mewtwo he'll never sell. Jumbo Fitz has a lot of... All right. Can we talk about this card right here? Do you guys see what this is? This is 2 Fitz from me. I signed a Jumbo for him because he's a big Jumbo guy. I said, Fitz, send me your address. So he sends me his address. And then, like, a couple weeks later, return the sender. I message Fitz on Discord. I'm like, dude, is the address you gave me, like, is there a mistake there? And he's like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. That was the wrong address. I'm like, oh my God. Like, really, Fitz? Who does that? Who gives out the wrong address? He gave me like his old address that he used to live at. It was his new house number with his old street address. I'm like, really? Really, Fitz? That's how you're going to do me? But no, that's fine. I just give him Fitz a little bit of shit. But it was kind of funny. So now I got to resend this out. You know, thank God for pirate ship, right? No, I'm joking. I just had to give Fitz a little bit of shit. But it was pretty funny that he gave me a combination of 2 addresses. Either that or he just really didn't want this sweet signed Jumbo Raichu from Shining Legends. Sir Master says Rattle needs to do a Booze News Discord. Yeah, definitely. Let's see. We got M Readin 810 says, yo, PK, just graded a PSA 9 Mysterious Treasures Raichu Hollow. Very nice, man. I'll tell you one thing that is true throughout this hobby, and there's no denying it, and there's no matter what anybody tells you. I mean this. There's never been a bad Raichu. Whether it's one of my favorite Raichus, the one that doesn't get talked about enough, Raichu EX from EX Emerald. That card slaps. There's a lot of good Raichus. Another Raichu EX from Sandstorm. That Raichu slaps. But the Emerald one slaps. There's a lot of ones that slap. But yeah, take it to the bank. There's never been a bad Raichu card, nor will there ever be a bad Raichu card. That's something you can take to the bank. Let's see. We got DeGreen Shiz, Mr. Josh in the chat. He gave a shout out to #1 mod in the game, Drew. Yeah. DeGreen Shiz, are you going to a Collecticon in Dallas? That's one of those ones I wish I could go to, but being June or being early May with the baby along the way, I'm so busy these weekends. I got no time for anything. Chill Phil said PK was on that Bud Light diet. Yeah, man, I'm not on that Bud Light diet anymore. Pokedama says, scarcity is almost always more of a factor. Popularity is typically only a factor when specific Pokemon is only a factor with specific Pokemon in all honesty. Take Gengar, Charizard, Umbreon, etc. Yeah. Joe, I mean, but you could say the same about scarcity and popularity. Like, when you look at Gengars and you look at Charizards and Umbreons, sure, you got like the original Gengar from Fossil. That's an obvious one. Or sorry, original, yeah. But then when you look at like some of the more scarcer Gengars that are still like relatively modern, you go look at like Platinum Rise and Rivals has a level X Gengar in it. Like, that card still slaps. Is that? Did I say the right card set? Why am I spacing on level X Gengar? Level X Gengar. Oh, it's Arceus. God damn it. I knew it was Arceus. I should have said Arceus. But yeah. And then Charizard, Umbreon. Yeah. You're right, though. Benjamin Dean says, yes, I agree, PK. It shows Rattle cares about his fans. Yep. TKK Collector said he's never looked at his ETB sleeves. You don't need to look at them. I'm only telling you, you will have to look at them eventually when people start to grade them, which I hope that doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it does. This market makes no sense. Did I just skip to the bottom again? Yep. Pat's Tats Power Channel says, well, I can understand code cards from older sets. Maybe something you want to hold as a collector LL, but wow, I didn't know they were grading those. Yeah, they're grading new ones too. It's a pretty crazy thing. Dats Porters says, this 151 set coming out will be like S tier popular. Save all the boxes. Yeah, probably 151 set is going to slap. I've yet to actually find the person who says that 151 set is not going to do well, but I almost wish we could find that person, because you almost question, like, if you have a set that has close to 100% of all the people in this hobby say that that set is going to be very successful and it's going to do well, it almost makes you want to go on the other side of the fence and say that that set will not do well, even though it will go against your better judgment, because you might believe in that set, you believe in the original 151, you believe in the hype and the demand that will surround that thing. But because everybody's going to that, it almost makes you want to pull back and go, maybe it won't be good. Just because sometimes you see everybody go to something and you go, you get nervous, right? But yeah, I've yet to find that person. I've yet to find the person that doesn't think 151 set is going to do well. So, uh, I got a lot of hot dogs in the chat right now. Let's see. Flip to Flip says, PK, why do you like Raichu? How it started, first card you pulled in a holo. Flip to Flip, no. I've told this story on my channel in the past, but my chase card growing up was a Raichu. I never pulled it as a kid. I almost made a trade with my friend, but my friend could see it in my face that I really wanted the card, and I never got it. And then ended up getting out of Pokemon, and when I first got back into Pokemon, that was the very, very first card I bought. And I bought as many as I could, and in a weird way, probably created a buyout and probably created like an artificial price increase on that card because of how many I bought in a very small window of time. So, because it was a card that I never pulled as a kid, was always became my chase in the future. And I just love that card, or love the character Raichu growing up as well. So, all right. God damn it. I said I was going to go for 30 minutes, and I just looked over, and I'm going for 52. Why can't I go for 30 minutes like I planned? I'm sorry, guys. But, as always, thank you so much for joining this live. Thank you so much if you're watching this after the fact. Do me a favor. Hit that like button. I've said it many times. I don't ever ask you guys for anything. I don't have any affiliate links. I don't have paywalls. I don't have anything. All I do is I ask you to hit the like button. So if you could do that one solid for me, do it. If you watch every one of these videos and you don't hit the like button, like, that's fine too. You don't have to hit the like button. And if you watch all these videos and you get to the end and you haven't hit the subscribe button, like, I'd appreciate it if you do. But if you don't, that's okay too. As long as you guys are watching it, enjoying it for whatever reason. I need this. This is like my therapy, talking about Pokemon. My brain is just full of Pokemon throughout the day, and I need to get it all out. But yeah, guys, honestly, as always, I appreciate every single one of you guys. It's because of you guys that I do these videos. It's because of you guys that keeps me, engaged and entertained in this hobby. And for that, I cannot thank you enough. But with that said, as always, I'll catch you on the next video.